The sun glinted off the rippling surface of the community pool, casting shimmering patterns across the busy scene. Families clustered under colorful umbrellas, toddlers squealed with delight in the shallow end, and teens daringly jumped off the diving boards. It was a perfect day for relaxation and recreation, the kind of moment that brought the whole neighborhood together. Yet, perched high above the scene in his lifeguard chair, a white man surveyed the pool with a detached air, his sunglasses masking his gaze, but not the smirk of indifference on his face. Known for his brusque demeanor and unwavering authority, the lifeguard had a reputation. He was skilled, no doubt, years of experience and countless rescues under his belt, but his attitude often left much to be desired. Subtle quips about who deserved to be at the pool, whispered only to those he trusted, revealed a layer of prejudice he wore like an unseen badge. He prided himself on maintaining order at the pool, but his idea of order was steeped in assumptions and biases. From his vantage point, he noticed a black girl approaching the water. She couldn't have been older than 15, her eyes bright with joy as she laughed with friends on the pool's edge. Her carefree spirit seemed to stand in sharp contrast to the lifeguard's rigid posture. She adjusted her goggles and dove gracefully into the water, her strong, practiced strokes cutting through the surface with ease. She was clearly comfortable in the water, her movements fluid and confident. The lifeguard shifted in his chair, leaning slightly toward the other lifeguard on duty, a younger, more impressionable figure who often mimicked his senior's demeanor. "They always get a little too comfortable," he muttered under his breath, just loud enough to be heard. The younger lifeguard chuckled nervously, unsure whether to agree outright or stay silent. As the black girl swam toward the deeper end, her laughter echoed across the pool. Nearby, her family watched with pride, clapping occasionally as she performed a dive or tried out a new stroke. Unbeknownst to them, the lifeguard's eyes lingered on her with a mixture of scrutiny and disdain. He didn't expect anything to happen. After all, she seemed capable enough, but his indifference was palpable. A simmering tension that hinted at something more. The pool's atmosphere remained lively, but a subtle undercurrent of unease crept in, as a few patrons noticed the lifeguard's body language. Some rolled their eyes, familiar with his antics, while others tried to ignore the feeling that his gaze carried an unspoken judgment. The black girl, oblivious to the lifeguard's attitude, continued to enjoy herself, challenging her friends to races and playfully splashing water at them. She wasn't just a strong swimmer. She exuded a confidence that drew admiration from others at the pool. But as she ventured farther into the deep end, the lifeguard's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of annoyance. He muttered something under his breath again, adjusting his sunglasses and pretending to scan the rest of the pool. It was as though her very presence irked him, though he couldn't or wouldn't admit why. The younger lifeguard noticed the shift in his mentor's demeanor. "She's just swimming," he remarked hesitantly, trying to gauge the senior lifeguard's mood. The older man waved him off. "It's not about that," he said, his tone dismissive. "You'll understand when you've been here long enough." Meanwhile, the black girl was preparing for a more daring feat. Climbing onto the diving board, she steadied herself, her goggles reflecting the sunlight as she concentrated. The chatter around the pool hushed momentarily as onlookers turned their attention to her poised figure. She executed a flawless dive, slicing through the water like an arrow and emerging with a triumphant smile. The lifeguard barely acknowledged her accomplishment. Instead, he resumed his detached observation, his thoughts veering toward his own sense of control over the space. He didn't anticipate what was about to unfold. As the afternoon wore on, the lifeguard's indifference became more evident, particularly to those paying attention. Some parents exchanged glances, sensing his disinterest in anything that didn't align with his narrow perceptions of who belonged. A few even whispered among themselves, noting how he seemed quick to correct certain children, but turned a blind eye to others. In stark contrast, the black girl's presence continued to light up the pool. Her confidence and skill were undeniable, drawing attention and admiration from those around her. She was the kind of swimmer who could inspire others, her energy infectious and her determination clear. But beneath the surface of the sunny afternoon, a storm was brewing. The lifeguard's prejudice, his unwillingness to see her for who she truly was, would soon come to a head. As the day unfolded, the tension that had been building since her arrival would explode into a moment that no one at the pool would forget. And when it did, it would not only redefine the lifeguard's place at the pool, but also elevate the black girl's presence to something far greater than anyone could have anticipated. The young black girl, brimming with energy and determination, was more than just a recreational swimmer. She harbored a deep passion for the water, spending hours honing her skills with dreams that stretched far beyond casual laps. For as long as she could remember, her aspiration had been clear: to become a lifeguard. It wasn't just the idea of sitting in an elevated chair that appealed to her, it was the responsibility, the chance to protect others, and the symbolism of mastery over a skill she loved. Her journey to this dream, however, had been anything but smooth. Growing up in a community where swimming programs were scarce and opportunities often leaned toward those more privileged, she had to fight to carve out her space. While others had access to lessons and private pools, her earliest lessons were in community centers or borrowed opportunities from friends. Yet, each stroke she perfected, and each new technique she mastered was a testament to her resilience. She wasn't unfamiliar with the stereotypes people often hurled her way, both subtly and overtly. Comments like, "You don't look like a swimmer," or incredulous looks when she talked about her aspirations were regular occurrences. But her confidence in the water, her unwavering focus on becoming a lifeguard, and the encouragement from her family kept her grounded. They reminded her that she wasn't just breaking barriers for herself, but also opening doors for others like her. The pool wasn't just a pastime for her. It was her proving ground, her sanctuary, and a place where she could imagine a future where she wasn't merely navigating biases, but dismantling them entirely. Meanwhile, the lifeguard, a middle-aged white man, viewed the pool through a much narrower lens. To him, his post wasn't about service, it was about control. He had spent years on the elevated chair, ruling over the water with an air of superiority. His view of his role was more about asserting dominance than ensuring the safety and enjoyment of every swimmer. His demeanor, while not overtly aggressive, carried a consistent undercurrent of bias. He was quick to praise certain swimmers, those he deemed more fitting of the pool's atmosphere, while dismissing others with a cold indifference. His authority shielded him from accountability, and his biases were subtle enough to avoid outright reprimand, but blatant enough to leave their mark on those he judged. The lifeguard's interactions with swimmers like the young black girl were perfunctory at best, and at worst, quietly belittling. He rarely engaged with her directly, often averting his gaze or making offhand comments to his colleagues that reinforced his skewed perceptions. For him, the pool wasn't a space for opportunity or equity. It was a hierarchy where he dictated who belonged. while the girl dreamed of the day she could claim her own whistle and lifeguard chair. He couldn't fathom someone like her in such a position. He saw the water as his domain, a place where he decided the narrative, until now. Unbeknownst to him, the girl's presence at the pool that day wasn't just about swimming. It was about quietly asserting her right to be there, her right to dream, and her right to redefine what it meant to belong. What he saw as an ordinary afternoon would soon become a turning point, one that would challenge the very foundation of his authority and elevate her aspirations to an unforeseen height. The afternoon sun shimmered on the surface of the water as laughter and splashes filled the air. The young black girl, always confident in her element, ventured farther into the deep end. Her strokes were steady and controlled, but an unexpected current, perhaps from an unforeseen pool mechanism or an influx of rowdy swimmers, suddenly disrupted her rhythm. The once tranquil water became a challenge, pulling her into a struggle she hadn't anticipated. Her calls for help were faint at first, muffled by the sounds of the busy pool. A few onlookers noticed her distress and began shouting for the lifeguard, pointing urgently toward the deep end. The lifeguard, perched lazily on his elevated chair, initially ignored the commotion. He scanned the pool as if searching for a more worthy reason to act. When it became clear that the crowd's attention was fixated on the struggling girl, he let out an audible sigh, muttering something about these kinds of swimmers under his breath. With a visible lack of urgency, he adjusted his sunglasses and finally blew his whistle, signaling his impending action. As parents shouted and other swimmers moved aside, he dove into the water. The rescue, while technically proficient, lacked any semblance of compassion or care. He brought the girl safely to the pool's edge, but his expression betrayed annoyance rather than relief. As the girl, breathless but otherwise unharmed, thanked him through shaky breaths, the lifeguard scoffed. "You shouldn't have been out there in the first place," he muttered, loud enough for others to hear. "Some people just don't know their limits." His tone was dismissive, his words laced with a prejudice that stung far more than the water's chill. The crowd, initially relieved by the rescue, began to murmur in disapproval. A mother whispered to her friend about how unnecessary the remark had been. A few teenagers discreetly recorded the aftermath on their phones. The girl, still recovering, locked eyes with the lifeguard for a moment, her gratitude replaced by a quiet resolve. She didn't say anything in response, but her composure spoke volumes. She wouldn't let this moment define her. As she wrapped herself in a towel and walked toward her family, several witnesses approached pool management, recounting the lifeguard's hesitancy and inappropriate comment. His colleagues exchanged awkward glances, aware of his history, but unsure how to address the situation. Meanwhile, the girl silently vowed that this incident wouldn't end with humiliation. It would mark the beginning of a transformation, one she intended to lead. The aftermath of the incident left a ripple of unresolved tension among the pool's patrons and staff. The young black girl, however, carried herself with quiet determination. She returned home that evening, replaying the events in her mind, not as a victim, but as someone ready to effect change. Her resolve strengthened. She decided it was time to step into a role she had always admired, becoming a lifeguard herself. Fueled by her desire to ensure that no one else would have to endure the treatment she faced, she researched lifeguard certifications and reached out to local training centers. The next morning, she approached the pool's management with her application in hand. Her presence, confident and unyielding, caught them off guard, Many of them had seen the incident unfold and knew of the murmurs circulating among the regular patrons. "I'd like to join your lifeguard team," she said, her voice steady. "I believe I can bring the skills and perspective this pool needs." Word of her application spread quickly, and many community members who had witnessed the event rallied behind her. Parents, especially those who frequented the pool with their children, submitted letters to management, emphasizing the importance of having lifeguards who prioritized safety and fairness over bias. Some of them shared videos of the original incident, providing undeniable evidence of the lifeguard's unprofessional behavior. The pool's management, under increasing public pressure, decided to thoroughly review the girl's credentials. She excelled in swimming tests, demonstrating not only proficiency but also an instinct for water safety that left no room for doubt about her capabilities. Her passion for the role was evident in every step of the process. Meanwhile, the lifeguard's tenure began to crumble. As part of the investigation, the management reviewed his past performance and discovered a troubling history. Reports of discriminatory remarks, negligence, and complaints from patrons began to surface, painting a clear picture of someone unfit for the responsibility he had been given. Fellow staff members, emboldened by the growing scrutiny, began to share their experiences of his dismissive and biased attitude. It didn't take long for the management to make their decision. The lifeguard was called in for a meeting and informed of his termination. The decision was swift and definitive, signaling the pool's commitment to a safer, more inclusive environment. His dismissal sent a strong message. Discriminatory behavior and negligence would no longer be tolerated. The girl, now officially part of the lifeguard team, stood as a testament to resilience and justice. Her journey from being humiliated to becoming a role model inspired the entire community, marking a pivotal moment of change for the pool and beyond. The young girl's resilience and unwavering determination bore fruit as she officially stepped into her new role as a lifeguard. Her appointment was met with an outpouring of support from the community. Parents brought their children to the pool with a renewed sense of confidence, knowing that her dedication to safety and fairness would set a new standard. The first day on the job was transformative, not just for her, but for everyone who witnessed her journey from adversity to leadership. From the outset, she approached her role with pride and a clear vision. She saw her position not merely as a job, but as an opportunity to create a more inclusive and welcoming environment. One of her first initiatives was organizing free swimming lessons for children from underrepresented backgrounds. The classes were designed not only to teach swimming, but also to instill a sense of confidence in the water, something she had always cherished. Word spread quickly about the new programs, and families began flocking to the pool. Her efforts brought a sense of unity to a community that had previously felt alienated by the old system. Alongside her team, she introduced safety workshops, ensuring everyone, regardless of their experience, felt welcome and secure at the pool. Her leadership began to reshape the perception of what the pool could be, a place of fun, growth, and equal opportunity for all. Meanwhile, the former lifeguard faced the consequences of his actions. News of his termination spread throughout the local area, and his behavior during the incident became a cautionary tale. Public backlash was swift and uncompromising. Community members who once turned a blind eye to his misconduct spoke out, expressing relief that accountability had finally been served. His peers distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with someone whose actions had tarnished the pool's reputation. For the former lifeguard, The reality of losing not just his job, but the respect of those around him, was a humbling experience. Without his position of authority to shield him, he was left to confront the impact of his prejudice and negligence. The loss served as a reminder that power without responsibility is fleeting, and respect must be earned through actions, not demanded by position. As the girl's leadership gained momentum, she proved that transformation was possible, even in the face of deeply ingrained biases. The pool, once a place of division, became a symbol of unity and progress. Her story resonated far beyond the community, inspiring others to stand against discrimination and work toward inclusivity. The ripple effects of her actions were felt not just in the pool, but in the broader dialogue about fairness and respect in all spaces. The transformation of the pool into a place of inclusivity and fairness was nothing short of remarkable. What had once been an environment tinged with unspoken biases and favoritism became a vibrant and welcoming space for people of all ages and backgrounds. Parents who had hesitated to bring their children returned, reassured by the visible changes. Young swimmers, many of whom had never felt comfortable in such spaces, now splashed freely, their laughter echoing against the walls. The girl, now the face of this new era, carried herself with quiet confidence and a sense of purpose. Her presence in the lifeguard chair wasn't just a job. It was a symbol of progress and the power of perseverance. Community members often stopped by to thank her, sharing stories of how her resilience had inspired them. Her story became an example for others to follow, proving that no barrier was insurmountable when met with determination and courage. One of her most significant accomplishments was fostering an environment of inclusivity. The changes she implemented weren't just superficial. They addressed the root issues that had alienated so many. Her free swimming lessons continued to grow, bringing together children and adults who had previously felt excluded. The safety workshops became a community highlight, teaching not only water skills, but also the importance of mutual respect and understanding. The pool wasn't just a recreational space anymore. It was a hub for community bonding and empowerment. Meanwhile, the former lifeguard's absence was a reminder of the consequences of unchecked bias and discrimination. His downfall served as a lesson to others in positions of authority, demonstrating that prejudice would no longer be tolerated. The management's swift actions and the girl's rise to leadership sent a clear message. Every individual deserved respect, and leadership must be grounded in accountability and justice. The final scene at the pool was one of pure harmony. A diverse group of swimmers occupied the water, children of all backgrounds learning together, families enjoying the day, and even teenagers practicing lifeguard drills inspired by the girl's journey. She sat in her lifeguard chair, scanning the water with a calm but attentive gaze, her whistle hanging loosely around her neck. The smile on her face was not just one of contentment, but of pride and fulfillment. She understood the gravity of her role, not just as a lifeguard, but as a leader who had redefined what it meant to serve and protect. The pool, transformed under her watch, reflected her vision, a place where everyone was valued and safe. The former lifeguard's shadow was replaced by her light, her presence a beacon of what the community could achieve when fairness prevailed. As the sun began to set, its rays shimmering on the surface of the water, the girl adjusted her cap and stood momentarily, watching the joyful scene before her. It was more than a job. It was a purpose realized. Her story had traveled far and wide, but she remained grounded, her actions speaking louder than any words ever could. A young boy approached her chair, asking shyly if he could sign up for swimming lessons. She crouched down, meeting his eyes with encouragement and kindness, and said, "Of course. Everyone is welcome here." The closing moment captured the essence of her journey, the quiet dignity of a leader who earned her place not through entitlement, but through strength, resilience, and the unwavering belief in justice. Her story became a legacy, encapsulated in her final reflection. Leadership isn't given. It's earned through courage and a commitment to justice.